The Silurian hypothesis. Would it be possible to detect an industrial civilization in the geological record? The paper suggests that not only did an advanced breed exist before us, but geological processes must have erased all evidence of their existence. What started as a mere idea of civilization before us quickly transformed into concerning questions about their remains. Think about it. Imagine that the whole of humanity disappears today. How long would it take for all evidence of our existence to follow suit? Scientists peg it at a few thousand years. Our formidable skyscrapers would crumble, plastics would degrade, even our radioactive waste would fade. If all traces of our seemingly magnificent presence could disappear in a few thousand years, what do you think happened to the civilizations before us? Could we humans just be the latest chapter in a much older story? But before we answer that, where did the name Silurian come from? Enter the Silurian period. About 443 to 419 million years ago, in the third and shortest period of the Paleozoic era, scientists believed that life existed in Earth's oceans. However, there was zero evidence of intelligent life. To add to that, astrophysicist Adam Frank and climate scientist Gavin Schmidt thought it would be nice to pass a wink to Doctor Who.
Remnant of a bygone age on planet Earth.
Remember that sci-fi series where the fictional Silurians were an advanced reptilian species that lived before humans? Yes, that's them. Combining the idea of whether an ancient civilization lived before humans, plus the theory of life existing in the far Silurian period, the Silurian hypothesis began to make sense.
This land is ours. We lived here long before the apes.
But Frank and Schmidt's paper didn't stop there. Their thought experiment explored whether such ancient civilizations left any recognizable traces of their existence. Their conclusion? Probably not. Why, you ask? It's because geological processes like plate tectonics, erosion, and fossilization are so powerful that they could erase all physical evidence of an ancient society. Frank and Schmidt argued that instead of looking for a smoky Silurian picture or any other absurd physical proof, we better start searching for chemical fingerprints in the Earth's crust. And for a generation of humans with trust issues, this can be hard to do. Imagine abandoning your search for actual lizard folks to focus on anomalies in the carbon cycle. But in a short while, you'll see why these scientists thought that this would be the best approach. In the rocks presently available to us, only a fraction of Earth's history is preserved within. With such geological processes constantly repeating themselves, there is a high chance that entire eras have been wiped clean. If an advanced civilization did exist millions of years ago, its machines, roads, and skyscrapers would have been ground into dust and redistributed across the planet. But if all evidence of an ancient industrialized society has been wiped off, what do Frank and Schmidt's thought experiments rely on? Since we agree on the fact that geological processes must have eliminated physical proof of their existence, the scientists played on the kind of evidence that cannot be wiped away. Non-physical explanations. When the desirable is not available, the available becomes desirable. This is the theory Frank and Schmidt held close as they drafted their paper. If direct evidence like artifacts or structures used by Silurians have been obliterated by natural processes, how about chemical fingerprints? Surely chemical signatures embedded in the Earth's crust could serve as subtle indicators of past industrial activities, couldn't it? Take, for example, abnormal isotopic ratios. If an industrialized civilization did occupy the Earth before us, they must have engaged in industrial processes like fossil fuel combustion. And if they did, it would have altered the natural level of carbon isotopes. Carbon-12 would become significantly higher than carbon-13. And where else to find such anomalies than the sedimented layers of Earth's crust? And if the ancient civilizations did use nitrogen-based fertilizers for their farms, that is, if we assume they did farm, There would also be anomalies in nitrogen, 15 levels. These abnormal levels within the Earth's crust might point to the possibility of synthetic fertilizer production long before humans came to be. But this is not the only way suggested by the curious scientists. Frank and Schmidt took the Silurian hypothesis a notch higher when they stopped to ask, what if the ancient society fought nuclear wars too? Wait, what? That's pushing the boundaries for a civilization that we aren't sure of their existence to start with. But imagine that this advanced society did create nuclear weapons. If they did, then there could be radiological evidence lurking beneath Earth's surface as well. How so? The answer lies in radioactive isotopes. If nuclear reactions were indeed used by the Silurians for energy production or the production of weapons, there would be traces of radioactive isotopes. Take, for example, plutonium-244 and iodine-129 have extremely long half-lives and are not commonly found in nature. If scientists could detect their presence in geological layers, voila, we would be onto evidence of past nuclear technology use. But if scientists still missed such evidence, Frank and Schmidt had one more up their sleeves. What if the industrial civilization burned fossil fuels so much that they released excess amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere? In turn, global warming happened. Hard to believe, right? However, the scientists posed as many absurd angles as they could to find traces of an advanced society that existed millions of years before humans. But while these suggested tests show the possibility of past industrial activity, there is a twist. Even natural processes can produce similar evidence. For example, volcanic eruptions can send massive amounts of carbon dioxide spiraling into the atmosphere. This could distort carbon isotope ratios as well. A good example of this is the Permian-Triassic extinction event that took place over 250 million years ago. In the blink of an eye, a massive volcano eruption led to global warming and ocean acidification. So, before you blame ancient global warming on the Silurians, consider the natural events that have also occurred within that period. In the same shoes, we know how exciting the idea of a past civilization fighting nuclear wars sounded. Imagine lizard folks all guarded on their reptilian armor, ready to shoot down an enemy lizard country. It's the perfect Doctor Who's reincarnation. But as interesting as that sounds, it might not be the case. Nearly 2 billion years ago, the Oklo natural nuclear reactors also occurred in the Oklo region of Gabon, West Africa. Although it is the first, and so far the last of its kind, astrophysicists and scientists have used it to counter the Silurian hypothesis. Even if traces of radiological evidence from past industrialized societies were found today, it might be discounted to stem from natural nuclear processes, just like the one in Oklo. Let's take a quick dive into the stone mysteries across Asia. Deep in the Siberian wilderness lies Mount Sharia. Mount Sharia is the home to stone blocks so massive that even cranes today would struggle to move them. Some weigh over 3,000 tons, yet they're stacked like Lego bricks. They also have fine, flat, right-angled surfaces consisting of granite. To explain the origin of these blocks, historians dismiss it as natural geology. But there is something you should know. The site sits within the ancient Denisovan range. What could this mean? Across Mongolia and Central Asia, we see the same thing. Perfectly cut slabs and enigmatic megaliths in regions tied to Denisovan presence. These aren't scattered stones, but engineered placements. And they appear in places where our ancestors lacked the capacity or equipment to erect such structures. If Denisovans had the brains and brawn we've already seen, could they have been the hands behind these impossible structures? Here's where it gets even stranger. Many of these megalithic sites aren't random piles of rock. They are also astronomically aligned. At Gornaya Shoria, certain walls face cardinal points with uncanny accuracy. In Mongolia, Megalithic standing stones align with solstice sunrise and sunset. That's cosmic geometry carved into stone. Think about it. We're told Denisovans were cave dwellers with basic tools. Yet someone in their territory was measuring the skies and encoding their findings in architecture. This is a skill that requires math, observation, and generational knowledge. It's the same precision we see in Stonehenge, the Great Pyramid, and the Mayan calendar. So who taught whom? Did later civilizations invent these alignments on their own? Or were they following a blueprint left behind by Denisovans? If these so-called primitives knew the sky well enough to encode it in stone, then history has sold us a very small piece of a much larger puzzle. Don't you agree? Now let's connect the dots. What if Denisovans weren't just isolated mountain dwellers, but the original master builders? Imagine them as the engineers whose knowledge flowed outward, influencing Egyptian pyramid design, Incan stonework, and Mayan astronomy in the process. It sounds outrageous until you realize the similarities. Giant, impossible stones cut with precision, structures aligned to the stars, cultural tales of sky gods and giant teachers who came before. The fingerprints are littered everywhere. Maybe that's why megaliths appear suddenly in the archaeological record, without any trial and error phase. One day, humanity discovers stone engineering at an advanced level, as if someone handed them the blueprint. And maybe the Denisovans did hand them. Picture this: a group of Denisovans working together on a massive stone project thousands of years ago. No written language or shouting across the quarry, yet the work moves with smooth coordination, as if they're following the same invisible script. How could this have happened? Some researchers propose that perhaps they used telepathic communication. It sounds unbelievable, but consider this. Denisovan brains were 20% bigger than ours, with genetic hints of unique neural wiring. Scientists can't say exactly what that meant, but it could have allowed forms of information processing we don't fully grasp today. This reshapes how we picture them. Maybe Denisovans didn't rely on long written records or alphabets. Perhaps their advanced memory and cognition allowed a kind of direct transmission of knowledge, not telepathy in the sci-fi sense, but a level of human connection and shared understanding that feels almost wireless compared to us. But this is the ultimate twist. If this super DNA was passed down through the ages, it supposedly lies in bits amongst us today. But we are yet to see the capabilities fully exercised. So what happened? Did we lose those abilities through evolution? Or were they taken from us in the chaos of survival? If Denisovans truly lived with psychic communication, healing energies, and supercomputer minds, then maybe humanity didn't evolve upward from them. Maybe we regressed. Then there's the Tibetan highlands. At altitudes where most humans would collapse from oxygen deprivation, Tibetan villagers farm, cook, and raise families without breaking a sweat. Their secret? The EPAS1 gene variant, a direct gift from Denisovans. This mutation fine-tunes red blood cells to process oxygen in thin air. This leaves Tibetans rocking the title of the undisputed champions of high-altitude living. Without Denisovan DNA, scaling Everest would have been impossible. But think about what this means. While our ancestors were gasping for air in the valleys, Denisovans were building life above the clouds. They were thriving where modern humans couldn't. And somehow, that genetic superpower was passed on to the Tibetans like a living signature from Denisovans. It's one thing to say Denisovans lived in the mountains. It's another to prove they engineered survival at altitudes that break us. Now this is where things get really provocative. Some researchers claim that Denisovan DNA doesn't just affect survival, it also influences cognition. Studies hint that populations with higher Denisovan DNA sometimes show stronger memory retention, problem-solving, and spatial awareness. Can't be a mere coincidence, can it? Of course, mainstream science treads carefully here. Nobody wants to suggest that intelligence varies by ancestry. But when you step back, you can see the full picture. If Denisovans truly had better neural pathways, surely the fragments of their genius could show in modern populations. Here's the part that makes archaeologists scratch their heads. Denisovans thrived across Asia for hundreds of thousands of years. Then suddenly, poof, around 40,000 years ago, their traces vanished almost overnight. And guess what else was happening at that exact time? Homo sapiens was spreading into Asia. Indeed, history has a way of telling the same story. Whenever two human species cross paths, only one walks away. Fossil evidence shows Denisovans were flourishing right up until our ancestors arrived. Then, silence. No tools, no fossils, no cultural traces. As if someone hit the delete button on an entire species. Did they fade away naturally? Or did we play a direct role in erasing them? If Denisovans truly had brains, brawn, and technology that surpassed ours, then the idea that they simply died out feels convenient. Too convenient. Genetics already tells us something shocking. Denisovans didn't just disappear, they interbred with us. Modern populations in Asia and Oceania carry their DNA, which means our ancestors didn't just meet them as acquaintances. Instead, they shared as much as they could: fire, food, and families. But what happens when neighbors aren't equal? Trouble looms. Imagine two species vying for the same territory. One stronger, smarter, and better adapted. The other is numerous, more aggressive, and armed with a talent for war. That's a perfect recipe for conflict. Some researchers suggest Homo sapiens may have outcompeted Denisovans. Through the use of violence, resources, or sheer numbers, they might have won. But others whisper about something darker, a prehistoric genocide. If Denisovans were a super civilization, maybe our ancestors didn't defeat them with brains. What if their weapon of warfare was ice-cold brutality? And what better way to erase a rival than to wipe their story from history? But what if the Denisovans weren't defeated at all? This is another theory about the Denisovan disappearance. We've heard the stories told of wise beings who retreated into mountains, caves, and even underground realms when lesser humans spread across the land. Even Tibetan myths speak of hidden kingdoms like Shambhala. Also, Mongolian tales describe ancestors disappearing into caverns, promising to return when the world is ready. What if the Denisovans saw the writing on the wall? What if they saw humanity's chaos and chose to withdraw rather than fight? Around 12,800 years ago, the Earth hit a wall. Temperatures took a deep dive, ice sheets collapsed, and sudden floods swept across continents. This is what scientists call the Younger Dryas event. Mainstream archaeology frames it as a natural climate swing. But for alternative historians, it's the smoking gun. This is the catastrophe that could have erased whole civilizations, including Denisovans. Imagine mountain fortresses buried under landslides, river valleys drowned overnight, and populations scattered to the winds. From the Sumerian flood to Noah's Ark to Native American world resets theories, they all share the same story. The Earth was wiped clean. If Denisovans had truly built advanced societies, this cataclysm could explain why almost nothing remains. Their megastructures broken into rubble, their knowledge drowned in a single night, and their people forced into hiding. Maybe they weren't erased by us, but by the planet itself. If a whole super civilization could be erased from history, what else have we lost? And more importantly, what else is still hidden beneath our feet waiting to be found?